Welcome, welcome, welcome. What you are is energy. You are a living, breathing, movable transmission of energy, so I want you to transmit that. And what that means is, I don't care if you're an extrovert, I don't care if you're an introvert, I don't care if you like crowds, hate crowds, love crowds. What you're going to do right now is you're going to transmit some energy, and that means that you are required to turn and look at someone. And stay looking at them until I'm completed. So go ahead. And if you can do it in a little bit of silence, that would be great. I'll be able to tell when you've locked in. Have you locked in yet? Are you diverting your eyes? Are you looking at their shoulder? Are you looking at their hair? Everything but their eyes. So I'm going to ask you that you look at their eyes. Settle in. Settle in. If you're willing, let it drop down. Let it drop down. Okay, what you are is you are this person's Valentine right now. Wait. Don't move your gaze. All that means is that silently, you are going to transmit your energy by letting them know that you love them. You're not going to say it, you're just going to express it energetically to them. See if you can feel yourself taking turns. Keep breathing. Notice if you've already looked away. Notice how uncomfortable you are. Notice how comfortable you are. Because all of these things are indicators where you are with a barometer of understanding with regards to the power that you are and the transmitter of energy that you are. Do you withhold it or do you freely give it? All right, you're tortured long enough. Tell them, my God, you're good looking. Yes, you are. You are a transmitter of energy. Do you believe that? Do you understand what that means? So that person, that might be their only Valentine. How sad. That might be the only time that they've ever actually stopped long enough and dropped down to a place of vulnerability that allows them to even receive or consider the fact that they are loved. And you might have been the only person to do that. It might have been your only opportunity to give yourself permission to do the same. But what's so fascinating and maddening at the same time is trying to define the indefinable. In trying to create structure around that which has no structure. In trying to bring some semblance of order to that which cannot be contained within the human need to create patterns. You know, we're like that, right? We're just an insane species. We want to try to bring description and finality to something that is infinite. Part of our brain, the reptilian part of our brain, is so consumed with wanting to understand and put definition to and to create patterns and things that are beyond pattern. We want to put gender on things that have no gender. We want to put definition on things that cannot be explained in language. And one of those things is obviously our understanding of God, not gender. People must have thought Ernest Holmes was crazy, our founder, when he called God the thing itself. It was the best way he could come up with an explanation to label or define something that cannot be labeled. And I would venture to say the same thing applies for love. You, and myself included, have no idea what that actually is. Most of us have it so skewed because we've defined it as something to do with romanticism, with lust, with pheromones, with attraction. But love in and of itself is not any of that. It is a fundamental, eternal life system that is in back of all living things. I was trying to think of ways to, because again, I participate in the insanity in trying to define it and explain it to you. And the only analogy or metaphor that I could come up with is that it's something deeply rooted. And even those words fail. Because when you and I think of deeply rooted, we might take that as far as, let's say, a redwood in the Northern California forest. That's pretty deeply rooted, right? This is beyond that. This is something so fundamental to creation that its roots go in immeasurable distance. And you, then, have those roots. You are deeply rooted because you are an expression of or a vehicle of love. Notice my Southeast Texas accent just came out. Vehicle. 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 You are a vehicle of love. And we're going to have a shotgun wedding this morning. All right, so. Deeply rooted. Deeply rooted. And the insanity and the paradox about what we are is the fact that we have the capability to completely be ignorant of that. To know that and to still ignore it. To limit it, to compartmentalize it, to only go to it when it's convenient, to resist it. Some of you, I want you to take note, did you resist it? Did you resist an opportunity to connect with an energy of someone else expressing love? Because if you did, it's okay. You're part of the mass populace that look away or deflect any semblance of a compliment. And so what does that say about us as a collective? It says that we have a long way to go in this journey of comprehending and understanding what love is. Us as love, the participation of love, life as love, the fact that it's constantly there. And it's much more than the floor of Target with all of its red banners and crepes and commercialism. And so the nature of it then is those deep roots or constancy. It's the best that we can come up with. That's the nature of it. So it is a lie for you to think that you are void of love. It is a lie to actually think that you are unlovable because you are love, and that which you are, you cannot be. The only thing then that is restrictive, the only thing that is the resistance, is our own ignorance or our own unwillingness. So this morning, we're going to look at this in a deeper way and look at the way in which those deep roots are there, but a lot of times our behavior is very much like a tumbleweed. A tumbleweed doesn't have any roots, right? It's just floating on the surface. And so our behavior many times in the way in which we are reacting to the world is very surface-oriented. We've forgotten that we are love. We have forgotten the responsibility that comes with having those roots. So in our reactionary state, in our forgetfulness, in our fear, in our anxiety, and our learned mistrust, we are like a tumbleweed that keeps floating here and there, being tossed at the whim of a trend or an upset or a heavy wind or some physical malady or some emotional turmoil. But really what we are is deeply rooted. And it is the responsibility of a collective like this. It is the responsibility of any integrous spiritual community, any teacher, any sage, any prophet, to stand before those and to be in that level of community and to remind one another consistently of what we are. And so what happens then when we see those who intellectually know that they are loved but they are not acting loving? What do we do? Because I want to inform you that that is constantly going on. Constantly going on. And so one of the things that we might get confused is when Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians that that beautiful soliloquy about love. Love is patient. First mistake right there. Not from Paul, because we don't fully understand the Aramaic or the Hebrew or the Latin of what the origin of the word patient means. Because you and I now have done what with that word? That means that, we're going to sit here and we're going to observe the bad behavior. We're going to observe the resistance to the expression of what they are as love, and we're just going to hold space. We're going to be patient, and we're going to know that eventually they will wake up to the divinity of who they are, and then we will be waiting for them with open arms. That's not what patient in ancient scripture actually means. Patient means suffering. And it means to not allow someone to be in suffering. Love is patient. Love is not allowing someone to be in suffering. So what does that look like? I had a teacher when, I blame her, but in my blaming of her, because she was the one that told me, you really should take practitioner class. You really should take minister class. I know you don't want to be a minister, but you should just take the classes. She's very manipulative. And in our strange relationship, she was the one that I would always complain to about not being able to afford classes. Because I was a working actor and I had all of these responsibilities and I was robbing Peter to pay Paul, as we always say, and I was looking for a way to do all of this, and here she was asking me to take these classes, but I was like, well, you pay for it. And so I thought, well, how convenient. I'll just complain to her every time she's saying, where's your tuition? Where's your tuition? And years of this, because it was a very long program. Back then, my practitioner journey was almost 3 years. The ministerial program was even longer than that. And I was afforded the opportunity to always come up with tuition. To which she was always like, David, where's your tuition? And one day she said this. This is my teacher. I am so sick and tired of listening to you whine and complain about your inability to pay your tuition. Either figure it out or get out. It's my minister. But you see, she was very wise because I had been with her and had studied long enough for her to know my suffering. And if love is patient, which is love goes in and does not allow someone to suffer, she already knew that by hearing that from me, that I would get pissed off and I would go, oh yeah, well I'll show you. And next month I had my tuition on time. And the next month the next time tuition was due, I had it and I had it and I had it. But I was furious with her. But I'll show her I can gather up abundance. How dare you tell me that I have lack consciousness? I don't even remember what I did, but I'm sure I was collecting aluminum cans or anything else that I could do to show her that what she was telling me wasn't true. That, oddly enough, is love. And years later, I remember, we're still very good friends, and years later, when we were talking about this, she said, David, I knew exactly what I was doing with you. I was loving you in an entry point where I knew that you would be able to receive it. For me to say, oh, you poor thing, is not loving you. So one of the things that I want to talk about is the difference between what we think loving is and what enabling actually is. And I love the comedian Trevor Noah. I'm a huge fan of Trevor Noah. And the other day, they had filmed a segment that actually wasn't on part of his show, and he was just talking to the audience. And he said, there's a difference between love or enabling. There's a difference between speculation and enabling. And he was talking about the hashtag #MeToo movement and about the way in which all of the abuse of power and towards women is now being brought to light. And he said, it's one thing to know a red flag, and that red flag is speculation. He said it's like this. Well, there may be a shark in the water. So that's speculation, right? There may be a shark in the water. So in that speculation or in the dissemination of that information as a red flag, I tell you, well, there may be a shark in the water, and then that becomes your responsibility to decide whether or not you're going to go into the water. But he said, it's enabling when you know, here's the shark, and yet you still encourage people to go into the water. That's enabling. And see, there is a shark in the water with regards to your relationship and understanding of love. Because none of us, I include myself in here, fully grasp and comprehend what it means to be deeply rooted in the eternality of infinite intelligence. Because we are not living up to that standard. Our behavior is not that. It's not a condemnation. It's not right or wrong. It's simply the fact that you and I will never arrive at any finish line. But the extraordinary part of that is that while we are here, we have the opportunity to stop speculating whether or not you and I are worthy, and understand that when we accompany or allow ourselves or anyone else to deny their worth through their marginalized decisions, then you and I are enablers. Because what we are doing then is we are saying, there's a shark in the water. That shark is your forgetfulness. That shark is your illusionary thinking that tells that you don't have enough. That shark is anything that is in denial of your inherent value. And for any of us to allow another person to continue down that track is then enabling that person to lose sight of what it is that their soul came here to be. And so it isn't love is patient and I'll just sit and I'll wait till you gain enlightenment. It is love will not allow someone to continue to sit in their suffering and their denial. How do you do that? We can't go and proselytize and preach and point fingers. But what we can do is we can create space. We can create community. We can create intention. We can create programs, we can create classes, we can create our own level of communication, we can create accountability. And we can continue to show up in circumstances over and over again where I say to you, remind me when I'm swimming with the shark. And you can say to me, remind me when I am doing the same. And we begin to call one another out. Not because we're speculating, but because we refuse anymore in this time and space to let people flounder away and squander their gifts. That's what it means to be a light in this world. Martin Luther King, and in this dynamic month of Black history and the peace candle and honoring his life, he said in 1963 in a speech, he said, I am proud to be maladjusted. That speech said, modern psychology has a word that is probably used more than any other word in modern psychology, and it is the word maladjusted. This word is the ringing cry to modern child psychology. Certainly, we all want to avoid the maladjusted life in order to have real adjustment within our personalities. We all want the well-adjusted life in order to avoid any neuroses. in order to avoid schizophrenic personalities. And he said, but I say to you, my friend, as I move to my conclusion, that sounded prophetic, didn't it? As I move to my conclusion, there are certain things in our nation and in this world which I am proud to be maladjusted, and which I hope all people of goodwill will be maladjusted until all of the good societies realize. I say very honestly that I never intend to become adjusted to segregation and discrimination. I never intend to become adjusted to religious bigotry. I never intend to adjust myself to economic conditions that will take necessities from the many and give luxury to those who are the few. I will never intend to adjust to the madness of militarism, to self-defeating effects of physical violence. In other words, I'm about convinced now that there needs to be a new organization in our world called the International Association for the Advancement of Creative Maladjustment. And he finished and he said, men and women who will be maladjusted as the prophet Amos, who in the midst of the injustices of his day could cry out in words that echo across the centuries, let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. To not stand up when those of us who know better continue to act small. Is trying to conform to some patternized way in a misdiagnosis of what it means to love people. You know, long ago as a minister, I realized I'm not here to be people's friend. Because the problem is that everybody has a different criteria of friendship. And then it becomes maddening for me to try to navigate how to be everybody's friend because your friendship looks this way and your friendship looks this way. And no, my job in my relationship to you is to continue to stand before you and to remind you of your deep roots. And like my teacher, to begin to fully understand what is it about you, what is it about me within myself that continues to live so small and in such denial of the power and of who and what you are. I was on jury duty, and but I wanted to serve. I actually did want to serve. I was maddened by the process, but I wanted to serve. I also had the flu at the same time. And so I kept going and driving down to Decatur, and then part of that process was also the snow day where the courthouse was closed. And finally, after the fourth day of jury deliberation, I'm sitting in the juror's box, and the judge and the lawyers are asking me if I have the capability of being able to be impartial about a case involving Haitian immigrants. And I said to them, I don't even know what that question means. I said, first of all, we do not live... Pastor Ault comes to Washington. So I said, first of all, we don't live in a world that is black and white. We live in a world that is gray. If you're going to accuse somebody of stealing, if you're going to accuse somebody of murder, if you're going to accuse these people of a particular thing, if you're going to want to sue whatever entity that you're trying to sue in this wrongful death case, I want to know why these people did the things that they did. If someone stole something, I want to know why they stole it. Were they hungry? Because just sending them off in this maddening system that only operates in black and white will not help anybody. Thank you, Reverend Ault, for your time. You're free to go. But I did want to serve. Maybe my service just looked a little different. But this is not a time to speculate that there is something in the water. I'm going to tell you there's something in the water. And what is in the water is a deep forgetfulness. What is in the water is an illusion of divisiveness and separation. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to coddle you. I'm not going to tell you it's going to get better, because maybe for you it won't. And you know why? Because it means that there is a part within you that has not become fascinated enough as to why you tick the way that you tick. And so in working with people, my friend Matteo, you don't know Matteo, but he's a friend of a collective of people. He has done work for all of us. He is a Mexican immigrant. Yes, he is undocumented. He is here illegally. He has a wife. They have 2 small children. And right after he was at my house and we were having coffee, he's been here with his family to SLCA. And last week, after he was at my house and I made his lunch and served him his coffee, he took a call and he went to Gwinnett County. And he took a job to paint somebody's house, an interior job. And he started and he was scraping the ceilings and he was doing it, and he didn't finish, so he told the man that he would come back the next morning. And when he came back the next morning, the man, after getting the work out of Matteo, called the authorities, and Matteo was hauled in to Gwinnett County Detention Center. He was then transferred to ICE, a detention center. But when he was in Gwinnett, he was in a room where no one could sit down. He was in a room with more than 70 people. The temperature was around 30-something degrees. These people were fed 3 times a day, and what it was peanut butter sandwiches that were thrown into the room at 3 a.m., at 11 a.m., and at 5 p.m. Matteo couldn't eat peanuts. He said you couldn't sit down. This is in the United States of America. This is in Gwinnett County. This is here in Atlanta proper. Finally, a 70-something-year-old man who wasn't an illegal immigrant, why he was in the room, I don't know, finally cried out to the guard, "I can't eat peanuts." This is after the 3rd day. They were in there 5 days. "I can't eat peanuts." And they go, "Oh, you should have told us." And they took him out. And 15 minutes later, he came in and he had been hosed down. And they just threw him back into the 30-degree temperature room. So Matteo, who is already suffering, in a moment of remembrance of his deep roots, had everyone in the room surround this 70-year-old man, and they just huddled and provide enough warmth so that he wouldn't go into hypothermia. He's out now after a very expensive bond. Not sure what will happen. There are some amazing lawyers out there. But I tell you this because you and I do not have the luxury to enable one another about what we are or what we aren't, what we don't have. It's time to wake up. Because here's the thing. You and I both are a part of the problem and a part of the solution. And when we forget or when we deny our deep roots of love and the activism that comes around that, then all that we do is perpetuate the problem. But when you and I stand up and begin to remind one another and serve one another from that highest place of integrity, then we are a part of the solution. And then we are a part of activating what that nature of love means. What struck me about Matteo was this. Last Sunday, I was actually at Gwinnett County Jail. And Matteo was never blaming the person who turned him in. You know why? Because his focus was on, what do I need to do to take care of my family? What do I need to do? What do we do in order to make sure that my wife is okay and my children are okay? He did not want to spend any time in retribution about the person who did what they did to him, that turned him in, that got free labor out of him. And I looked and I listened and I stared and I was in awe because here was my teacher. I was in the presence of Buddha. I was in the presence of Jesus. I was in the presence of a Gandhi. I was in the presence of someone who said, we don't have time or the luxury to waste in blaming other people. What is being called upon is to take this situation and create a catalyst for action. You and I do not have time to enable one another to continue to talk about who did us wrong. You and I don't have the luxury of swimming with the shark of blame in order to stall doing the work. And what do I mean by doing the work? To stall trying to understand what it is and why you tick the way that you tick. Working with someone this week, done a lot of work on themselves. A lot of work on themselves. And it was evident in the way in which this person carried themselves and the way in which they spoke, and yet they went through a tremendous hardship at the end of 2017. But when they came to see me, it wasn't about ain't it awful and I have no other resource. It was, I'm curious as to why that came before me. I can do something with that. So we dialogued for a couple of hours. And do you know what we came up with? He had a memory about his father coming back from World War II. His father, an African American, after serving his country, came back to their hometown and had to go to the back of the bus. And he saw that. And I said, that's it. Let's talk about that. That's it. Right there. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, that's it. Because, and this person had tremendous success. Tremendous success. Major, triple-digit figure success. And lost everything. And guess what the visual of seeing his father, who had served in World War II, have to go to the back of the bus, did to his belief system? That it doesn't matter how much you do. It doesn't matter how hard you serve. It doesn't matter the length and the breadth and the depth that you are willing to go to in order to put yourself out there. It doesn't matter. And I said, that's what you're holding on to in your subconscious. What do we do about that? And so as we began to explore that to me is the solution. And every single one of us in here has not only that, but a multitude of those things that are swimming and living and thriving within our subconscious mind that become the saboteur that become the shark that continue to devour us and substantiate a narrative that you are unlovable. And what happens when you bring spiritual law into that? Then we go, see, told you. Oh, I love this one. They're shiny and they have all this and boom, boom. 6 months later, they're gone. No one loves me. Because we have mistaken what love is for some instant gratification or something external that we're trying to get from other people. And that is not what love is. Love is an understanding of what you are. Love is an understanding that says, regardless of how many moments like that tell you it's futile, regardless of the voice of your mother or the voice of your father that's ringing through your head, that is telling you and whispering to you that you're not enough, that you're bad, that you're poison, that all of that thing is simply noise, and that you and I have the opportunity to take that and transmute it through the power and the change of our thought. Did you know that that's what this philosophy was all about? Change your thinking. It isn't just about, why will I travel this way or this way? It's not that kind of thinking. It's the thinking that says, I don't deserve. Where'd that come from? It's the thinking that says, I will never measure up. I will never get ahead. I will never be. I'm too this, too that. It's that kind of thinking. And are you and I hungry and craving enough to get to the solution, to begin to see what it is that has created these upper limits, these glass ceilings that we are not allowing ourselves to bust through? The world does not need one other marginalized thinking person. What the world needs, as Howard Thurman so brilliantly said, is that for people that come alive. He said, what makes you come alive? Because what the world needs is more people who are coming alive. Ernest Holmes, our founder, one of his last sermons was called Sermon by the Sea. And it was held at Asilomar, which is a beautiful rustic campground near, where's it at? Carmel. Pacific Grove and Carmel, that 17-mile drive stretch right there on the coast. And the chapel in which he gave this speech overlooks the sea, the ocean there. And he didn't say in that speech, give me 1 million people who think this way and we can do something. He didn't say that. He said, give me one person. Give me one person who is willing to align themselves, associate themselves with the deeper truths of the power of mind. And I will show you a portal or an entryway to change. Give me one person who is willing to understand the depth and breadth of what it is that they are made of. Just one person. And myself and them, we can go and we can march into a history and a creation of our own making. Just one person. So I stand before you this morning. I said, I just need one person. And that's all I'm really interested in. If you don't want to take ownership and exhibit the depth and the breadth of your power, you are welcomed here. But it might be a little uncomfortable. Because the message will not change. In fact, the message will continue to heighten. This is not built for socialization. This is built for change. When we are not living and loving from our roots, then everything that we are a part of is conditioned. Do you understand what that means? Conditioned. It's finite. There's your love message for today. So I want you to take a deep breath. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to reflect back on what it felt like to have somebody staring at you. Someone who was willing to see you for the truth of what you are. And now I want you to see yourself. So that means imagine that you are looking at your own reflection. And I want you to look at those eyes of yours. I want you to look at every part of your face. And I want you to apologize. I want you to apologize to your reflection for all of the times that you have continued to swim with the sharks, where you have enabled yourself to not fully open up and receive the gift of what you are. Just say, I'm sorry. Continue to say, I'm sorry. Allow this to be some redemptive moment. And understand the insanity that we have all traveled, where we have expected other people to love us, to see us, when we have not been able to love or see ourselves. It is our responsibility to own the deepest of our roots. It is our responsibility to become fascinated around what our resistance is all about. It is our privilege to step into an energy system of awe, to look at ourselves and go, my goodness, even with all of my resistance, those roots are still there. The love has never left. I am as God created me. In the light, the energy of illumination, I am as God created me in the love, in the power, and the glory of itself. Of itself. The thing itself is what I am perfectly patterned after. I want you to keep looking at your face. Direct all of this at that reflection and say, I get it. And never again. And if only one, just give me one person in this room whose apology is sincere, then you and I can do something. Instead of blaming, we can start to look at everything that comes to us and go, oh, this is a catalyst. A catalyst for something greater, a catalyst for good. This is not an obstacle, this is an opportunity. Because I'm getting closer and closer to unveiling the onion, the illusion of all the can'ts, so I can get to the energy of I can. This is my redemption moment. Love is patient. Because you see, those deep roots never left. If they had, we would have remained in the suffering. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not holding a record of wrong. It does not delight in evil, but it rejoices with the truth. It protects. It protects. It protects. And it perseveres. And if that is what love is and what love does, then I am that. And that is my human job description. And it's time for us to go to work. Breathing in together. Just reach out and squeeze the hand of someone next to you, and all that squeeze is indicating is that I see you, I feel you, I honor you. It also means that you have to take it in when someone squeezes your hand. And maybe the person's hand that you are holding is the person, the one, who in this room this morning has finally taken full responsibility of the power of who and what they are. So squeeze it again to say congratulations. And together we say, so it is.
Hi, I'm David Ault, and I simply want to say thanks. Thanks for taking the time to watch our broadcast here at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. We have a vision, and that vision is to reawaken all to their spiritual magnificence. And one of the ways that we are able to do that is through this very medium of broadcasting. So if you got anything out of this, if you felt in any way inspired, or if something spoke to you directly, then I extend an invitation to you to become a part of our family by donating. And there are many ways in order for you to be able to do that. One is to simply go to our website at slca.com, and there you will find all different kinds of prompts that will help you support what it is that we are doing here in Atlanta. One way is to become a pledger. That means that you decide on a monthly basis that you are going to help us with this vision. Another way is to donate through our management system called Fellowship One, another through PayPal, and another even easier way is on your cell phone. You can do what's called text to tithe, and that number is 404-796-7030. Again, thank you so much for your support, and I invite you to come back weekly to see what it is that we're up to. Blessings.